Tori Amos here at CFNY Studios. Tori, that's beautiful.
I mixed up the words, I'm sorry, but some people will know.
Those who have those B-sides.
Yeah, they know.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about early childhood recollections and thinking about how difficult it is sometimes to remember things from the very early years of your life. And I was thinking how music had been a real part of your life from a very early point. Do you remember what what's your earliest musical recollection? That's a tough one, I know.
I saw this big black piano in my father's study. It was massive. And I looked up and I said, "Hi." And I really wanted to become friends with it. And it looked so foreboding. Because, it was huge. It was one of those old uprights. And I just crawled up on the stool and decided to become best friends. And that's the first thing I remember. And I remember my mother putting telephone books under me so that I could, first of all, reach the keys. And I couldn't reach the pedals forever. So, you had to let a few things slide.
Yeah. That's funny because my parents also had one of those in the dining room, a great big old piano. And I remember sitting there, going in there and pretending I could play. I was putting on massive concerts. And I just wonder how my parents put up with that. They never put me into lessons. It must have been really bad.
Well, I had a really good time without having lessons. Sometimes lessons can mess you up. It really depends who your teacher is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people tell you can teach yourself a lot of stuff, especially if you work on your ear. And that's what I did. I'd play records, anything. My mother had a record collection, so I played anything I could get my hands on and tried to imitate it. And what became the biggest influence were guitar players for me.
Is that right?
It's right. I didn't want to steal from all the other piano players. Right. So nobody could tell where I was stealing from when I listened to guitar players.
Do you remember what first record you bought that you wanted to go out and learn to play?
Well, the Beatles was the big thing. John Lennon was a big influence. There was a Doors record that got snuck in the house, and my father made it leave. And I said to him, "But Dad, he looks like Jesus." And he said, Mary, get this out of here." My dad's a minister, so he had a real hard time with Jim Morrison. As did most fathers.
I think so.
Yummy. Yeah, Jim and Robert Plant. As girls, I remember Jim had already died by the time Jim had died when I was like 6 or 7, so this hadn't quite crossed my mind, although it did, but I hadn't figured it out yet. But by the time I was 10, it was definitely crossing mine and my friend's mind, like who we were going to give it to.
Right.
The first time. And Robert was like the guy we wanted to initiate us. We wanted to like do one of these, go to the Stones and see this guy. We'd all, share Robert. We weren't going to
be greedy about it or anything.
And that he could initiate us, and then he could leave and we could all have like popcorn and stuff.
That sounds like a great idea. Sounds like it was a good fantasy.
Yeah, I told him when I met him, and he wanted to know how old I was. So,
that's funny. If you were about 6 or 7, okay, when I'm thinking now about your teen years, we're maybe looking at about the 70s, some point in the late 70s, early 80s.
75.
75. Okay. Now, at that time, there was when I think back about the 70s, there was a lot of stuff budding up in music. I guess this has always been the case, but when I think of prominent musical directions popping up, there was the progressive rock kind of scene. There was a lot of disco, if I remember rightly. There was also
punk.
Were you into any one of those scenes to any great degree?
I was.
Or a little bit of all?
What I was a student of anything I could get my hands on. So I've never been like a part of a movement, because then that discards the other movements. But I would try and really, when I was listening to punk, or when I was listening to jazz, or when I was listening to Bartok, or whoever I was listening to, I would immerse myself in that world, because, punk isn't cooler than Bartok, isn't cooler than, Gershwin, isn't cooler than Oscar Peterson, isn't cooler than Jimi Hendrix. Nobody is cooler than anybody else. If you think that, what it is your opinion is just you happen to like them, but that doesn't mean that they're cooler than the next person. In their field, these people were geniuses in their field. And if you really want to be a student of music and to honor, jazz isn't something that is doesn't personally make my tummy go, but I can really respect those that do it well. And it's changed my playing style. It's made me a more interesting player because my vocabulary has changed, because I've listened to different kinds of music. I mean, I'll put on Sonic Youth as fast as I'll put on, any classical player back to back to see, well, what can I learn from listening to these different things? And it changes you forever as a player.
You seem to be very much into continuing the learning process.
All the time. You become really boring if you don't. All you are is a repeat. You just repeat anything that goes inside you. I feel like to develop your own thoughts and your own expression, you go to all these different categories of expression. And that's also reading. That's also novels, reading poets. And a lot of times I'll go look at painters. I've been looking at a lot of painters lately. And Agnes Martin is a woman that I've been looking at. She's real subliminal, and I'll just stare for hours. Sometimes it's just a whole wall filled with one color. And I'll just sit there, and it's amazing the thoughts that come, because it's a different medium. So when you go to a different medium, it helps your medium. And you don't steal. And that's important, to not become, exactly like somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to play for us again? Because I think we'd love to hear another song.
Yeah, I'm going to do another B-side, and I have to find my program, everybody.
Okay.
Now, this might be a bit silly, but...
While you're doing that, I'm just going to remind folks that Tori Amos this afternoon between 5 and 6:30 is going to be at HMV 333 Yonge Street, and you're going to be signing copies of your Little Earthquake songbook, which is more than a songbook.
And you can just come say hi if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay, too. So, let's try this. Crush your fingers.
Okay.
Don't say morning's come. Don't say it's up to me. If I could take 25 minutes out of the record books and sugar, he brings me sugar. Bobby's collecting bees, and a hammer's he used one on me. Yeah, Cold War with little boys, get in with the bubblegum trade and sugar. Bring me sugar. No, the robins bring me many things, but sugar, it brings me sugar. As far as I can tell, I've been gone for miles now. And you